Guys, welcome to another episode of the Works Podcast. I have a very dear friend of mine. We met a couple years ago. He's been a great inspiration to me. It's maybe a guy that in the entrepreneur and definitely in the real estate sector, a guy that I look up to. Gave me that very first book years ago, dedicated that book to me, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I have the honor to introduce you guys to Ariel Lopez. Ariel, thank you for coming, man.
My pleasure. This is such a humbling experience.
So we were doing a little recap. We connected, obviously, through Instagram. I wanted you to come on the podcast because I feel that your story must be heard. Given the fact that my parents, my mom's side of the family, Cuban immigrant, came here during the 80s, started their own job, couldn't really succeed in the entrepreneur side, her family, but I have that in my blood now, and that's what I have a pretty big business, and you know, I could relate a lot to your story. I want to dive a little bit more into your story, and I want the world to know who is Ariel Lopez, the humbling beginnings, and where you're at today, man.
Perfect.
So go ahead, a little introduction.
I was born in Havana, Cuba. I immigrated to America in 1980. I left home at 9 years old alone, and I inevitably made it to the port of Mariel, where my father and my grandfather, who had come from Miami to go get my whole family, were there. They were only able to get me and a cousin of mine. So I landed in Miami, 9 years old, and on 29th Street there, and today I own a city block next to the apartment building the day that I arrived at. I own the block next to that actual unit where my grandparents live. So whenever I'm there, it's very tender for me. It's next to the Jose Marti Park on 29th and 9th. I learned how to swim in the pool of that park.
Look at that.
So when I'm there and I speak to a lot of my my tenants and their recent arrivals, I share with them my experience, our collective experience. I empower them as much as possible. So 9 years old, I'm here, going to school in Hialeah, living, part of my life, I grew up in Carroll City as well. I went to school there, and then I went to Hialeah Junior High, got kicked out of there, went to Hialeah High, got kicked out of there. My highest level of education was the 11th grade in public education in Miami-Dade County. So
will you consider yourself a Hialeah boy?
There's no way I could not be one.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So your parents came durante el Mariel.
My father came in 79. My grandfather came in 71. I came in 1980. My mother came in 1983, 84 through Venezuela.
Yeah, my mom ended up coming here in 1980 as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and left everything behind, whole family. Her uncle, the uncles that are already here, went down there and...
Yeah, that's kind of what my dad was here, my grandfather. My father had only been here in November, and the Mariel was in the spring of 1980. My dad had only been here for 2-3 months. They were able to secure a boat and go to Cuba.
Yeah, that whole... When I think back into how everything is, and we're still living it today, Cubans coming in, Venezuelans coming in, it is so hard to leave. I'm going to try to hold back the tears, but it is so hard to leave everything behind.
Yeah.
Your whole family, everything that you've worked on, your family has worked on, your parents, leave everything behind and come here only with the clothes on your back.
That's right.
And start.
I actually came with 2 dimes.
Look at that.
My aunt had 2 dusty dimes. I thought she maybe thought I could make a phone call, but I couldn't make a phone call in 1980 with 2 dimes. You still needed a nickel. So, so I came with 2 dimes.
Yeah, man. It's that whole story just of us Cuban immigrants, especially I was born here, but I feel the pain.
Good.
I have a lot of employees that are immigrants as well, coming through Venezuela, Cuban, Mexico, Honduras, and when they tell me their stories, it just kind of takes me back to where try to envision my mom, my aunts, my grandparents coming in through that and everything that they had to go through.
It's very tragic.
Especially coming to a country where they don't even know the language.
That's right.
They don't even know the language. So, it's inspiring as well.
Yeah.
Inspiring for me in the sense that, they did all this. I have to succeed in this country.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of what I tell people. Look, it's almost like the people that have the courage to immigrate, right? To come over here from wherever they come from. They're not here to waste their time. They're here to try to do better and justify the reason why they left home. So the idea is to rise above. I started working at Bogart's on Palm Avenue and 41st in Hialeah. I was probably 12 years old. I was a stock boy. I've been this big since then, so my age was always, people didn't know how, I'm currently 53.
You look good, man. You look good.
Thank you. It's my genes, I started working there and at Bogart's. I worked at Sedano's, Publix, Tropical, Winn-Dixie. I worked at Play World. And I sold coconuts on 49th Street.
Hustler.
I used to go to the Palm Springs Mall, which is right there on 49th Street and West 4th.
Mm-hmm.
And they used to have coconut trees in the parking lot. I would go and cut the coconuts down and sell them out of my 71 Impala.
Did that entrepreneur style, did that something that instilled in you at a very young age? Maybe like as somebody in your family? Was your dad that way? Your uncle?
Okay, very, very, very good question. It's my paternal grandfather.
Okay.
My father is my CPA. So my father, is an educated individual, but in my house, what we spoke about was never sports. It was always business. And I always was, growing up, my father does only commercial clients. So growing up, I would hear the stories, what business was better. That's the kind of conversation I grew up in.
It's awesome. Those are my conversations.
Yeah, exactly. And so these are the same conversations I have with my children as well. Yeah, being an entrepreneur for me, it's got nothing to do with money. It's
How would you define it?
freedom.
Freedom?
Yeah, I get to do what I want.
That's exactly how I define it.
I'm now
as well.
going to Argentina and Chile on the 26th of December, and I don't have a return flight. I'll be there a month, maybe I'll be a month and a half. I don't know. And so that's kind of what money, how I use it, So yeah, like around 9 or so, I got here. At 12 or so, I'm working at these supermarkets. Listen to this. This is going to blow your mind. At 16 years old, I go to the DMV to get my driver's license. My grandfather took me. I was 6'3" at the moment.
Grown ass man.
Yeah, exactly. And I go with my Cuban birth certificate, which is written in cursive.
Who writes cursive nowadays?
Yeah, no, exactly.
Wait, who writes cursive? Are they even teaching like cursive in school? I don't even know if they're teaching cursive in school.
They do. They
still do. Okay.
They still do.
Because I remember that
My
was
daughter,
like,
yeah, I've seen it. So anyhow, the lady thought that it said 61 instead of 71.
Also,
She made
10 años más.
She made me 10 years older. Lickety split.
You're 6'3", bro.
Right.
Imagínate.
Yeah, now I have a license that says I'm 26.
Oh
So
my
what am I
God.
thinking? I'm like, I got to get up. So I ended up getting a job as a bouncer at Club 1235 on 1235 Washington Avenue, where Mansion and all those other clubs have come up. So I was working as a bouncer in the 80s in South Beach. And while I was there, I started, this was right when they killed the presidential candidate in La Tarima. They shot him up. I forgot his name right now. Colombian president. So I was working in this club. A lot of Colombians were being killed. My family, since the 60s, in Albuquerque, New Mexico, had been involved in the auto glass business.
That's the story that I know. But go ahead. I want you to tap in because I have some questions.
Exactly. So at 16, I'm seeing all these people die. I'm hearing about it. It's like news in Miami all the time, right? By the time I was, that was 16. I was working as a bouncer, blah, blah, blah. By the time I was 19, I already had started Gator Auto Glass, which is a company that I started when I was 19. And I was, installing glass around Miami, and, I have my carpal tunnel surgery right here from all the work that I physically did. to put glass in cars for 24 years.
You would buy. I think you told me the story. You would buy also. You would go to the junkyards.
Yeah.
And get glass from the junkyards and
Yeah,
resell it.
that's how I started. When I started, I was basically working for someone else, and then on the weekends I would go to UPick,
Claro,
and I would
obvio.
go in there, and you would walk in needing a glass. I would take it out for you and install it in your car.
Look at that.
So I invented that sort of thing, and then that company, I grew it a little bit. Early on, I realized that I needed to hire a couple of employees. Nothing crazy. I had like 2 vans, and then I started doing exporting. So this is what I did, and this was a very tough decision that I had to make. I had to buy a $350 fax machine.
$350.
Okay,
But at the time,
this was a big, like, is it worth it? Are faxes going to be really happening? Imagine. So I bought the fax machine. I went to Office Depot. I made business cards. I bought a plane ticket. But before I did this, let me retrace my steps. Before I did this, I went to the Miami-Dade County Library and I started making photocopies of the foreign yellow pages. This is how I developed my marketing list in Bogota, Colombia.
how did you know like what to do and how? Is it all because of the conversations you had?
Well, I knew that they needed glass. I knew that they needed bulletproof glass.
But the whole marketing thing, at 19, 20 years old.
It was just little business cards, and I made a list, and I went to Bogota, and I had these friends of my family that lived there, and so I stayed with them, in the Barrio Chico near La Javeriana, the university. So I would stay at their house. And in the day, while they all did their thing, I would go and, visit the body shops, the car dealerships. They were having, monopoly in Latin America is still alive and well. There are just a few companies that import, and it was kind of crazy because a lot of those bigger companies, if they caught you doing your own importing, they would close down your local account.
Look at that.
Yeah,
They were trying to just.
in a lot of these countries where anti-monopoly laws don't exist, it's alive and well. So you kind of learn, and so I started quoting and sending glass and all that to Latin America. But I quickly, I did it in Panama, I did it in Jamaica, I did it in Colombia.
How did you know to export? What made it? Not here, but let me do it internationally.
Well, because my distributors where I was buying glass, like Libby Owens Ford or PPG, they had the crates, and they were obviously every once in a while shipping glass down to the islands or to the Caribbean. So it was a thing that within my industry, other glass guys did.
Okay.
But none of them had actually gone in person to go to these places
To close deals.
to make a territory, which is very interesting what ended up happening
So
there.
you were like an authorized dealer over there?
I
you would say-
I had accounts with my suppliers, and I went over there, guerrilla marketing.
Look at that.
The craziest thing that happened is after I created the territory, PPG, which is one of the world's largest glass companies, they put a company salesman on that field that I created.
Look at that.
So that's when I realized that all my work, and if I keep, it was like, yeah.
I'm sorry to cut you off. Didn't you also start doing like bulletproof glass?
Yeah. That's what I was doing. I was selling it to Colombia.
Look
But
at that.
inevitably, that kind of dried up because, and they were kind of keeping me busy quoting around the country. I was 20 years old. So to say, oh yeah, we need a quote for this and we need a quote for that. I was being bogged down by just the sheer amount of work I was having to do.
Yeah.
And these people were kind of, I realized that I made a couple good contacts in Panama and Jamaica, but Colombia was extremely
Profitable.
complicated.
Oh, it was.
Yeah. And then, so the best thing that happened to me while going on those export trips is that I learned that the best place to make money, preserve your wealth, is here in America. And it's in real estate because you need to be able to touch it, hold it. And, my glass business was a little business. I came back and I started buying houses, and I would buy houses. I created a website called Auto Glass to Your Door
What year is this?
in the 90s. Listen to what I did. I bought the database from a national association of glass, of auto glass. So that means that if there is a realtor association, a national, right?
Claro.
I was able to buy the database of all their clients and all their suppliers. I plugged this into a mapping software. I put a website out there called www.autoglasstoyourdoor.com. I make sure that I had national accounts with now these glass companies. And what I was doing is I was promoting my website, and you would send me a hit, and I would get the local guy to install the glass, and I would ship him, I would drop ship him the glass from that city. That glass didn't come from anywhere. All I was doing was connecting the client who needed the glass, the installer who was going to install it, and the distributor who's distributing it. I did this all over the world.
What made you, because that definitely
Yeah, but look at what
grew
happened.
the business
but
big
look
time
at what,
then.
but look at what happened there. Again, I kind of was realizing that business, I needed maybe not even money. I needed staffing, because what was the ratio of calls to actual work being done?
You have to, you basically have to contact or
it's great.
subcontract everybody.
And then you're making, I mean, it was great. It was a great business
What
model.
were the margins?
I was making maybe $50 to $100, you know?
Okay.
So it wasn't bad, but no, and then, you know, so it was a great business. Had I had 10 people handling phones,
It was only you.
it was only me and my wife,
Yeah.
you know, Lisette, my mother of my children. Yeah, that's it. Sometimes you're just small and you just, idea might be the greatest idea in the world. This is like around.
So you didn't know how to scale it at the time.
Exactly. I was, you know, 11th grade education, immigrant from Cuba, you know. It was, you know, I was already reaching for the stars.
Claro.
So, you know, and I never really wanted to be that big. I never really wanted to have 10 employees, 20 employees, 100 employees. I rather condense. And how do you do that best? In real estate. You know?
What made you, so you started the business, obviously
The glass
money,
business.
the glass business. You started making money. So from the glass, you transitioned completely into real estate,
Yeah, so
or
what
did
would
you
happen-
do
what-
anything else in
No,
between?
just glass, real estate. So what I ended up doing is whatever money the glass business threw off, I would invest it in houses. I would buy a house, I'd fix it up. I wouldn't fix it up so much because I also would leave a little fat for the buyer. The idea is I would buy the deal, clean them up, get them ready, and turn them.
So basically, like what people are doing now, like wholesaling, flipping.
No, I wouldn't wholesale anything. I'd sell to the end user.
Oh, you'll sell.
But
to
I
the-
wouldn't do these DIY projects where people go and you might like marble, she might like carpet, he might like granite. So I was just like buying it, make sure there's enough margin, sell it. And then the end user, the customer, can then, you know. So I started making money on single family homes. And then I bought an old ExxonMobil gas station.
All right, so the homes.
Yes.
You started buying them. Were
Yep.
you buying them outright, financing?
Yeah.
You were doing.
I was financing them.
You were financing them. Okay.
Yeah, because I had first started to go to this is before.
What was the interest rate back then? Because
In the
people now,
sevens.
because people
In the
now are
sevens.
scared of like interest rates
No.
now.
No, that's ridiculous.
I tell people it doesn't matter the interest rates.
No.
What's the price that you buy?
No, you speak to my dad, he's going to tell you that in the 80s we were at 10 to 12% interest rate. And people were still buying houses.
Claro. People are so scared because, oh my God, no, forget about the
Yeah.
interest rate. You could always refinance. Rates are going to go up, down, doesn't matter. It's the price that you buy at.
Yeah. The whole deal has to make sense. It's not just the interest rate. So I started buying these houses. I would flip them. I then was able to buy an old ExxonMobil gas station that had a deed restriction for 10 years.
Meaning?
Meaning because these gas stations they have environmental issues, or let's say that they didn't have environmental issues. ExxonMobil is still on the hook if that ground is dirty. So they put like 10 years so that you can't put another gas station there for a while so that the soil becomes remediated and all that. But I made it into a great mechanic shop. And, you know, I bought that property for like 225. At some point, I was able to
Was this in Hialeah too?
in PSN.
On PSN. Oh, don't tell me it's the one right there in the corner.
Oh
where
yeah,
I think it's now
bought
called
it from Ed's Mobile.
right next to the La Vaquita.
Yeah,
No way.
yeah. I owned that for many years. That is a
No way.
yeah. I'm the guy.
Oh my God. No
Yeah,
way.
and I just sold it to them who just put that gas station there.
Yeah, Orion or something like
Yeah.
that it's called.
They're in the business of making the gas stations, and there's not enough traffic to justify that.
Yeah, no.
You know. So I bought that, and then I lent. I through friends and family in the city, someone asked me about lending money.
So you're in the business.
Yeah, but listen to this. I had never lent money to anybody. I'm not someone you should owe money to. So I just don't get into that business. You know?
It's profitable though.
But to me it's not. I make more
you would
money with my
prefer-
money
you would
than lending
prefer-
people money.
I was just having that conversation yesterday with a mortgage broker because he's also buying and flipping. And he said, Sam, I told him, man, isn't it better to just maybe just do hard money lending? Right now you make your 10, 11, 12% plus whatever points you make up front. He's like, Sam, I can make 60, 50 grand on a flip in
Why
2
would I
months.
be lending
And
money?
why would I hold my money? That's
Not only that, actually, let me give you because I've gone through that scenario multiple times of whether lend the money and all that. The biggest problem with that, you're not realizing what it is that once that deal is done, all you have is money. All they did was give you your money back. Now you have to go out and deploy that money again.
correct. No, of course.
No,
during that
that's
time,
the rub in that business.
But during that time, you had cash flow.
But the problem is, it ceases to exist at some point because you only lent it to the guy for 2 years, let's say. When he pays you back, and maybe he pays you early, pays you prepayment penalty, and now your cash flow is gone. You have to go and figure out where else you're going to find a credible, credit-worthy individual that you might feel safe in lending your money to.
So
It becomes a chore.
So in other words, you prefer to just buy.
I
hold,
bank
and
on
rent.
me.
Right.
I use the money. And the percentages, as your friend was saying, is crazy. It's just crazy how much you could make on a good piece of property.
Yeah, find the right deal.
So this particular deal was a little bit of a crazy deal that this guy brought to me. I'm going to explain the deal to you, and it's quite interesting. I had bought this gas station for $215 or $225. I don't remember. But there's a side story to that gas station. I went to buy it, and I went to get an SBA loan on it. And SBA loans take a lot longer. That was the only one I did, maybe 30 years ago. I haven't done any since. The guy who I was under contract to buy the gas station, who's a neighbor of mine nowadays, the contract had an expiration date. So the contract came and went, and the bank, Ocean Bank at the time, we weren't able to close. The guy goes, no, don't worry about it. I'll give you an extension. And I'm like, oh, that's super cool. He goes, yeah, but it's going to cost you 20 grand. And I was like, what?
For the extension.
We already have a price. We've negotiated this. He goes, you want it? It's 20 grand. I was there with Lisette, and we get in the car. We drive down the road, and I was like, motherfucker. And she goes, well, if you want the property,
Pay the 20 grand.
pay the 20 grand. I made a U-turn right there on 27th Avenue and 36th Street where the Burger King is.
Yeah.
Made a U-turn in my F-350, went with the tail between my legs and said, okay. Sometimes you gotta pay for those lessons.
No, of course.
So I bought the property. A few years later, the property ended up being valued at like $800,000. The bank gave me a line of credit of $500,000. Okay. And with that money, which is my nest egg, I was like, okay, I was gonna buy an apartment by Hialeah High, over there by Carvel.
So you took out the line of credit and you were using the line of credit to buy.
I was going to,
Okay.
but in the middle of that happening, this friend of mine goes, hey, there's this investor, and this is what we're doing. It's called mezzanine lending.
Mezzanine.
Yeah, I bought a business, book this big just so I could figure out. Literally, I still have it at the house. What was that? You know, and whenever something is a bit strange, it's usually
Like it's a scam or something.
sort of like
Es lo
that.
primero que uno piensa.
So I ended up putting the 500,000 with this fund that my friend had set up. The guy was paying us 25% on the money.
Oh my God.
It gets better. The guy was also paying me my carrying cost of 7.5 at Ocean Bank.
Oh wow.
When you see something like that,
Yeah.
run. The guy that we had lent the money to, we had lent it to my buddy that was setting these deals up would get this guy money for this building and money for another guy on this building, and not necessarily were the groups in this building the same groups in that building, right? But it was the same guy that we were all lending money to. 7 or 8 buildings throughout town. It was a big situation.
This is on Hialeah?
No, this is all Miami-Dade County.
Oh, Miami-Dade County.
Yeah, this is all over the place. All over. I don't remember. The group had lent, I think it was like around $16 million to this individual. Yeah. And out of that 16 million, I only had $500,000. And my father-in-law, I got him involved. He put 50 G's in, you know. My friend David and his wife, they put $250,000 in. These are people that were borrowing on their home equity lines.
Claro, they were
to jump on these, adventures.
To jump on the
Right.
thing, yeah, and see how they come out in the end.
Exactly. Probably less than a year into it, the guy started defaulting on his obligations to the 16 people that were involved. Shit started to hit the fan.
Claro.
There were people that had lots more money than I did, but mine was my money, and it was my little money. You know what I'm saying? And I had to fight it
To the end.
to the end. So my friend that had set these separate funds was obviously having an infarction, because now he had set up his friends and family in all
He
this,
brought everybody into the
and this ship was
sinking.
sinking. You know, looking back on it, I'm not saying that the original guy, I think the market, now looking back on it, what happened in 2008, this guy was trying to do condo conversions. So he was emptying out his units so he could kind of do the work and then sell them. And he got snagged in this whole...
So at the time, it was apartments going into condos.
Yes, exactly. That's what our investment was in.
They're saying that that's happening now. Apartments now
Going back to condo. Yeah. A lot of that's going on. So listen to this. The guy was supposed to pay us back. He can't now refinance his way out of it. And we decided as a group to create one company.
Okay.
Instead of having separate ones, we decided to create one. And that way we could mount a defense. We could all collaborate,
Try to get your money back.
Right, because it's basically the same bad guy. When that happened, I was, as I am, the fact that my time is unallocated makes it so that I can jump on anything tomorrow. If you call me and you say, hey, let's check out a deal in Kentucky, we'll get on a plane and we'll go. I don't have to, nothing keeps me, So I was able to have this free time. So I was made the manager of manager of these LLCs. Essentially, I was the president of this conglomerate of properties, because at the time, the consensus was that this shit was sinking, and I was going to be, the fall guy, somewhat. So no matter what was happening, I liked the fact that now I was in control, somewhat. I wasn't just another investor. Now I'm dealing. My friend and I are now dealing with litigation, hiring bankruptcy attorney, not because we're in bankruptcy, but because the guy went into bankruptcy.
Correct.
We ended up.
Did you get your money back? Okay.
Extensively.
Okay.
But I haven't gotten it back. I own the properties to this day. So to answer your question,
yes,
my $100 million portfolio is here in Dade County, wafting in the wind.
I have a question, man, because this topic of conversation comes up a lot when I talk to a lot of close friends of mine. My mentor also as well is heavy in real estate,
Sure.
and the goal is to obviously get to your level. You know, so is it worth having 100 single families, or really getting all that and investing into one single multifamily?
The answer is very simple. The multifamily, especially if it's old, like what I own, but it's older, is usually in the better parts of the city. You can't get financing for more than 5 to 7, possibly 10 years in those types of deals. So the difference between owning those single family homes is you can put 30-year loans on them and you're set.
So you would recommend single?
I wouldn't, but I wouldn't, because I have friends that have done that, and then they just flip them at some point in the future. It depends on your future strategies. If in the future, let's say that you're having, give you an example, your daughter's getting married and you need to sell 2 houses because you want to blow $1 million on her wedding.
It's a lot easier.
You could do that, and then you still have your other, But I manage my own properties with my staff. So imagine if I had, right now we have about 300 units. It's usually I have 300 to 500.
But you had more before. Well, you sold a couple,
we
right?
We sold, and now I have things in better locations. So the unit count is less, but I bought, to give you, I don't know if I told you, but I bought, I now own 400 feet of water on the Miami River on 12th Avenue. So
I think you posted a picture, because I service 10X Miami. My company service
he's
10X.
across the street from me.
He's across the street, because when I saw the apartment building, I was like, look who it is.
Yeah. So I own that.
That's prime.
Yeah. That call that I was just on, I get those 2-3 times a day.
That's awesome, man.
Thank you. I feel so proud to have accomplished that. All of my team, not just me. But so yeah, so the unit count comes and goes, but that's prime cheese right there. Next to Kiki, Sea Spice,
everything's right
front
there.
Front of 10X there.
Everything's right there. That's prime real estate right there.
Yeah, and the funny part is that everybody that calls me to try to sell it, I'm like, we're watching the same movie. I'm 53. I still gotta be, imagine I live to 110. That means I have another, 47, 67 years of watching how much it went up after I sold it to some sucker. You know what I'm saying? All I would have is money.
No, claro.
And he would have the property. So,
What's your goal? Your goal is to just keep, because
increasing the passive income.
Increasing the passive income.
Yeah. I have and that just kind of, I'm not going to say it happens on its own, but it's just the nature of the market,
Getting deals like that when you're, how many doors is that?
42.
Okay.
42 doors.
You do all your team does all your team does all the due diligence, everything?
Yeah. We don't pay anybody. We do it all.
How did you learn? Because when you start,
sure,
you have to go through, it's not the same thing as, okay, let me just una casita, let me just buy this. And you're talking about now bigger stuff.
Bueno, I'm going to tell you how it happened.
Taxes,
in the beginning, I got 185 units one shot, because
of that
the
deal.
guy who owed us the money. So the guy owed us the money. Let me just finish that story.
Yeah.
The guy owed us $16 million. He obviously wasn't able to pay. Inevitably, we took him into bankruptcy court and all these courts, and we exerted our mezzanine. Mezzanine, basically, there is no loans. You're deeding your company to me. So basically, I have all your stock. All I have to do is just file it. The loan is not on the real estate. It's on the company that owns the real estate.
Oh, okay.
So you lose the company, and the company owns the real estate.
I see now.
It's very, So we were able to take the properties from him, but then we had a bigger problem.
How are you going to manage all that?
That wasn't so hard.
No?
That's just putting warm bodies, and I'm able, and I got it, put people and a lot of hard work. The biggest problem was all the I think it was 13 or 14 partners that had initially put the money in, that had lent to the guy, like I had.
Yeah.
Because now all of a sudden, this investment that you made that was a 2-year investment became, right now it's going on 16 years. So the people that were there thinking
they were going to get their money quick and that's it, bounce.
they ended up getting 17 cents on the dollar for every penny every dollar that they put in. And some
They
got
wanted,
less.
but they wanted to. What they did they have the option to stay in the deal?
Yes.
Okay, I would have stayed in the deal.
Yeah, but that was a moment in time. 2007, 2000.
Yeah, everybody didn't know. People didn't know what to do.
People were committing suicide in Wall Street.
Yeah, people did not
So
know what
now it
was
seems
going to happen.
like a very good idea. But if you're not a visionary, if you don't believe in Dade County, if you're not, the reason that I have real estate here because I know where I'm at. I don't care what CNN says. I don't care what Fox says about where the stock market. I don't care what rates do. I know the need the community has. I'm here. I provide a service. My business isn't going anywhere. So we ended up taking the properties from the guy. We ended up settling now once I took the properties, now I'm the head cheese of managing all this. I settled with all of them, including myself. So out of 500,000, I got whatever,
17 cents on
exactly. And we all paid ourselves. This is a very tricky part, and I'm so glad you brought me here. This is right now worth all this conversation. Listen to what we had to do. Because now you have 10, 13, 14 partners that had intended to be involved in something that was going to only last 18 months or so forth. And now this became an indefinite hold. It's almost like if you lend that money, you were asking me earlier, you lend the money and you have to foreclose on the guy. Now all of a sudden you own that house forever. Or until market forces change or you decide to do something with it. So there is the possibility that you might have to hold. So if you're not good at holding, if you're not good at managing all these things, lending money is only half of the story.
Yeah.
So we ended up settling with the partners. And then there was like 3 or 4 stragglers who kind of wanted to, be involved, but not have any more skin in the game.
No, you have to have skin in the game.
So I hired a better lawyer. I went to Greenberg and Torg, and we spent about $100,000 with Greg Marks, and he's a brilliant lawyer, and we created something called a merger squeeze out. Merger squeeze out is essentially now we're all partners, and we're like, okay, this is our new operating agreement. We moved the company from a Florida company to a Delaware corporation because it's advantageous for creditors for you to be in Delaware. And when we moved to Delaware, we merged the old company with the Delaware LLC. And at that moment, we gave you the option of either you're in
or you're out.
If you're in,
long hold.
The operating agreement was written in such a way that, if I need a new roof, if I need another elevator, the seawall, like it was made in a way that if you're staying in, you're going to be in.
Of course.
So just my original friend and I stayed in. Everybody else dipped.
Really?
Yeah. We made it that way.
Well, because they probably also needed the money though, too.
Not only that, because it wasn't so much the money. It was the fear of what, the new management might decide to do. It was the fear of an unknown investment in time. Look how long I've held them. I could own them for another.
So you and another partner own?
Yeah. Some of our stuff, yeah. Some units I do own with someone else.
How does that go when you go into partnering deals and stuff like that?
I don't recommend partnering ever with anybody.
No.
Ever. I follow Martha Stewart's advice. Only if you have to. And here we had to. Because just like the other people that could have
So you would prefer to own a little bit
yes,
of
that's how I live.
Of 100, then maybe own a little piece of something big?
Yes. Affirmative.
Interesting.
Yeah. I like control. I'm very possessive.
Interesting.
So,
okay.
yeah. But also I'm a little bit older. Maybe that philosophy comes with time. You know what I'm saying? Because in the beginning, everybody is great and everybody wants to rise up and teams and all that.
Has family ever told you, "Hey, Ariel, let me jump on this deal"? What do you feel about that?
No, they never have because the stuff I buy is $10, $20 million. That's not what they would do. They more than anything seek advice on a real estate if they're going to buy a house or something like that. But they've never.
Is it true is it true that it's easier to buy those bigger deals to
Yes.
get funding
Yes.
than
100%.
elaborate a little bit?
Okay, but here's where that happens because, for example, some people go, "Oh, look, my credit score is 800. Do you think the bank will lend me to buy 16 units, 20 units, something like that?" They don't necessarily base it on credit, although credit is a factor.
You need to have some skin in the game as well.
You need to have some skin in the game, and they also want you to have experience in that business. So it's not as simple as they just want you to buy it. What are you going to do when you have to put 3 or 4 people in eviction? What are you going to do when, a hurricane, they want to make sure that you as a whole.
We'll take care of it.
Yeah, so it's not so much so where you're buying a single family home from Wachovia, they're going to lend you the money and they're never going to see you and they don't care what you do with your house. So this is a different, dynamic. So what ends up happening, and it's so true, and I read this in some of the books that I read in the past, is that once the banks pick up on the fact that you're a man of your word, notes get paid, things happen, clearly they don't have any business without someone like me. Banks are in the business of lending money.
Do you typically have that one guy and you build that relationship with that one bank? Or do you try to...
I'll tell you how it used to go. In the beginning, especially in 07, 08, when we had to go to some of these local banks, we did use a little bit of the smaller banks, but what ended up happening is lending limits. So for example, right now we're dealing with First Bank of Puerto Rico. They have $100 million lending limit. Not that owe them 100, I owe them plenty, but my point is you need to be with a bank that you can grow with. And you can't do that if you're with some of these, and then you're dealing with mostly regional banks. You're not going to go to Chase to go buy an apartment building. That's just doesn't compute. You're not going to,
so you recommend dealing with regional banks?
The Bank United, the First Banks, they're regional banks, yeah. And those are the ones where you have the relationship, where they know you. They just had a party last week. They have a yearly party. It's old school banking. They know you personally. They know.
That's what my mentors always told me. He told me he deals with regional bank.
Yeah.
His business and mainly all his properties that he owns.
Sure.
Is like that.
Yeah.
Not on your level yet, but eventually
sure.
that's the game plan to get on in
Right.
your level. But
so
I'm glad that you're pointing that out.
Yeah, no, and here's the issue why you need to have the banker, Jose Marrero, who's the banker happens to be a childhood friend of mine. So we know each other from the old country. Imagine that.
Is he Ocean Bank?
Yeah, no, he's at First Bank. He
First.
used to be at Ocean Bank. Jose Marrero, yeah. Of course you know Jose.
I have to. The name sounds familiar.
Yeah. He's been in banking all his life. The reason why you want to have a banker like him and a bank like First Bank is because you want to be able to jump on that deal and go no due diligence period. You're going to put your money down. You need to know that the bank and you and all
We're good.
is good because Miami is so competitive that sometimes you have to be brutal and buy the deals.
Ahí mismo.
Yeah.
Fast.
Closing in 15 days. The bank will put the money, I'll put my 20, 25%. And what happens if I go get a deal like that and then I start shopping? Not that I'm getting a bad deal from First Bank, but you don't have time to go now and spend 2 months
Waiting.
No.
You don't have time. You have to
This
move
needs
fast.
to happen,
You have to move quick.
Yeah, so you want to have that relationship and you want to make sure that, you're firing in all cylinders.
When you buy these big deals
Sure.
and you're putting, 25, maybe 30%, are you earning, and I'm talking about units that, let's say, for example, if there's a 200 unit building, 300 units, are typically you're earning 100, 200? What's the number?
I'm going to tell you.
What's the number? Because that's
I'm gonna
how the conversation
explain it to you
started.
in a different way.
As far as like owning single family and you're making $2,000, $1,500 a month off of one door, then owning all these doors and making the same amount of money, or is it more?
Well, look, so it depends. Tell me again. You were saying,
So let's say, for example, you own a single family,
right?
You own it outright.
Sure.
Vamos a suponer, you own it outright, and you're making
Okay,
$2,000 a month.
Here goes.
Compared to owning
first of all,
200 doors.
First of all, something that might shock your audience. I don't buy cap rates.
Okay.
I don't believe in them. I don't do any of that. I have an 11th grade education.
Keep it simple.
Extremely. That's what I learned from reading Warren Buffett. If you don't understand it, don't get involved in it.
Keep it simple.
You know, so it has to make more than the question you just asked. How much is my down payment versus the income I'm making? It has to make me exponentially a lot of money. I'll give you an example. I bought a building in Opelika. This is the second building I bought in Opelika. And I'm very proud to be a landlord in Opelika. And I don't know if you know how difficult it is, but it's very difficult. It's
Really,
not for
to
the
own?
faint of heart. I have people show up to my buildings with an AR-15 and just go
Go
and-
Section 8 or no?
I have a lot of Section 8. Over 50% of my tenants are Section 8.
Okay.
So I bought this building for $5,050,000. 77 doors. I sold it for $8,750,000 within 2 years.
Wow.
You know how I did that? It's not beautifying the building. I hate to say it. Some people think like that. They come in and they put all this elbow grease and they doll it up. A lot of these areas where I am involved in, I have to make it safer and better for the people that live there. And that's how I get my rents up. So that building went from making, I think it was collecting 60 to 70 when I bought it, and by the time I sold it, it was over 100. It was making like 40 to 50 more a month than when I bought it. So that's where I made those $4 million. You get me? Because I increased the revenue. How do you do that? Look, I go in, I evict 20 people, 20% of the population. The company motto is, clearly so you can all hear it, I buy crack dens and I turn them into gold mines. That's simple. You know, how do you do that? By getting involved. I used to work at the Opelika flea market. I went to Lake Stevens Elementary. You know, I grew up
In that area,
in
Miami
these
Gardens.
areas. You know, and I wanted to be nice for your grandmother, his grandmother. You know, I take pride in that. You know, so what do? We evict the drug dealers. We evict, you know, a lot of people. We try to keep that population. And what happens is, in some of these buildings and in some of these neighborhoods, real estate investment trust REITs own a lot of these big buildings.
A lot of those, yep.
They don't have any. They're not local. You know, they don't care.
They don't care about anything.
They don't care.
They just want
As long as
they
see
just
a
number in the computer
and
screen.
That's it. Where I do.
We're in the area. We live in the area.
It's a joy to me to have people feel safe. What do? I'll buy some of these buildings. They don't have remote control gates. I'll put that. I'll put cameras. You know, for a while there, I was trying to put Wi-Fi service for the whole building, but it never happened for a Comcast issue. But so you build value onto that building, you know. How do you do that with a single family house? You can't. It's a completely different game.
Yeah,
it's like being a veterinarian and the other one's a real doctor. You know what I'm saying? They're both probably MDs, but completely different subject. So single family homes is the way you get to. That's what I did. It's a stepping stone.
When did you know already? Okay, from here now. Well, obviously you inherited this whole this.
I took it from him.
Yeah, you know what I mean. But you were invested in this
yeah.
And you got it right.
Yeah.
But moving forward,
right?
Was that well? Obviously, you ended up learning everything, but for the people that want to start from single and they want to get obviously their little 8-plex or 16 units, what would you recommend them, the moves that they could make?
So what I did is this: I went from single family homes, and then I bought my first commercial piece of real estate was Ed's Mobile in PSN.
Okay,
that one. From that one, I bought the warehouses where my office is now. I sold those warehouses, but my office is still there. So I kind of went from residential to I did my first 2 commercial deals, when in 07, 08, around that time, my warehouses got a little bit vacant because a lot of people it was bad. I think the kind of real estate that I own today is recession proof, so.
Did you keep buying?
Yes, I did exactly because I forgot to tell you the most important part. They're all important, but this one's really important.
Never stop.
Never did. Not only did the investors get 17 cents on the dollar, and whoever asked for their money first ended up getting not 17 cents on the dollar. If they got whatever was there, because it was payable in 7 years.
So you had 7 years to pay
To
that.
pay those 17 cents. So whoever wanted their money now needed to take another haircut. But listen to this. All these buildings were financed by
Countrywide?
by Washington Mutual.
Okay. Wow.
You know,
They got bought out by Chase.
Jamie Dimon's company.
Yeah, they got bought out by Chase.
Exactly. But listen to this. This is crazy what I want to tell you. Back in those days, you remember people were getting loans. Real estate was just anybody who had a pulse would get a loan.
Exactly.
So the loans, the paperwork, the mortgages on these buildings were deficient. Meaning that they couldn't sell these mortgages because they weren't going to be able to foreclose on this guy. And they were going to have a liability issue because if you sell me a mortgage and I can't do anything with it, you better believe it, I'm coming back and we're going to have an issue.
100%.
So,
wow.
Listen to what happened.
Oh my God.
We didn't pay them for about 5 years while this is all going on. Because who had the personal guarantees? The guy I took the buildings from, not me. So yeah, exactly. And then what ended up happening is we got an $8 million discount on the first mortgages. So 17 cents that disappeared from the partners and an $8 million discount from, they said, get the $8 million discount, but refinance with someone else in town. So that's what we did. By then, these 185 units, you know how much their cost was? In the 40s. $40,000 a door. 185 of them. So imagine the equity. So then in a couple of years, I ended up...
You bring it closer.
That's fine. Yeah, I started... we started pulling some of that equity out. And that's when I realized that I wanted to be involved in Opalaca. I didn't feel good about owning real estate and calling myself a landlord if I can't be a landlord to everybody and anybody in the city. You know what I mean? I knew it was going to be challenging, but I embraced challenges. And so Opalaca has been an economic success story for me. So besides the properties that we took from the guy and how it all worked out, the growth came Opalaca and now on the river.
How about Hialeah, man?
I love it. I think I have a city block there on 29th Street. Hialeah is changing. There are so many high rises coming up in Hialeah.
Yeah.
The whole, next to the airport, Hialeah is going to be the whole Wynwood crowd is coming this way. There's $3,000 apartments in Hialeah.
Yeah, I know.
So.
Yeah, they say for the year 2050, it's going to be, the next 25 years is going to be big.
It's crazy. The racetrack, building townhouses on it. So Hialeah's out of control.
They're gonna be They're gonna be putting out. I think Mark said it right. Next year, Hialeah turns 100 years old, and they're gonna be, I guess, forecasting the next big thing. Hialeah is to me, Hialeah is the greatest city, man.
Not only that, but as time goes on, there's gonna be people like us there. Remember when Hialeah was looked down on? Hialeah's not like that anymore.
Mark Anthony says all the time.
It's completely, you have the Lea Arts District, and they did a bunch of upzoning over there by the Lea Arts District, by the Metro Rail.
Claro.
They're doing higher density, building there. So Hialeah is on a tear.
So you recommend definitely investing in that city?
I would, yeah. And the thing about Hialeah is there's all kinds of investments you could make. It's not like going to Weston where basically all you're going to buy is a house.
Yeah.
Hialeah, you could buy a mechanic shop, you could buy a gas station. There's a.
What do you think? What's your say as far as commercial warehouses? Would you recommend that instead of multifamily?
My friend Bob Zidell, I hope I got his name right. Guess what he's doing? They're building these warehouses for exotic toys.
That's a big thing now.
Listen, these guys have it down packed. They, all these people coming in from New York, LA, and all that with all their wealth, and they're all living in apartments. They don't have anywhere to keep
There's
stuff.
a place down, I think, somewhere in Miami, by the Tesla dealership. There's
Oh,
like,
yeah?
yeah. There's like, I forgot the name of the building, and that's all it is. It's you pay like a rent for your car, but at the same time, it's basically like a lounge. It's like a gentleman's lounge.
Well,
Just
so
smoke your cigars. You can hang out.
Exactly.
And your car's there.
It's a
and
lifestyle. They're
and
selling you a lifestyle.
Correct.
For the people that have, exotic cars and all that. So I think those are good. Warehouses are always going to be, I think
Is he building those in Miami?
they're building them all over the country.
Oh wow.
Yeah. He was telling me somewhere the other day. I don't
To
remember.
store your classic instead of.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I think warehouses are always good, but you're always gonna. I mean, if you're talking about you have a higher vacancy rate, I would think, than apartment buildings.
Yeah, I think so too. But here, there's, and at least in this area here, nothing is empty, man.
Yeah. No, this is a great location. Look at
Nothing
the
is
population density you have around here.
Nothing is empty around here.
Yeah. So
you're basically right now, obviously still in real estate. You sold some stuff. There was a I think a post that you posted saying, you basically work only like the first 5 days of the month and just collecting rent.
Figuring out who owes us, sending them to eviction. Yeah, within the first 10 days of the month, the bulk of my business is done. Obviously, we maintain our units with our own staff, so we're having Section 8 inspections. We have a lot of,
And you're constantly still buying? You're constantly still looking?
We're still looking all the time, yeah.
Do you have a team now that is just in charge of all that?
No.
You do all the do everything yourself?
I see things. You get used to seeing so much real estate. You end up developing a third eye for it. You know what works. You know what has potential. I think the Alapata area is getting out of control.
Yeah.
A lot of those people from Wynwood have bought blocks. A lot of the galleries and things like that. So I think as long as you're in the border, where it's just beginning to get good in that area, because like what we're talking about, Hialeah, it's gonna change, but where it's a big city, where do you go?
When you buy, if you're interested in a certain property, what are the things that you look for around? Obviously, besides the property trying to cash flow, but what are the things that you look around the property? Certain things, is there certain things that you look for?
You want to have a high traffic area. The buildings that I have where there's like the ones on 29th Street, people are walking by, there's a church. The closer they are to the community, the quicker you're going to have people living in them. Some of the buildings that I've had, for example, in Opalaca behind the junkyards, like the one I sold, how are you ever going to get there? You're only going to get there if you look it on, apartments.com or
LoopNet.
Yeah, something like that. So you want to have, a bus bench near your building. You want to have a supermarket near your building. It's that. It's the community, the park. Those are the things that enhance it.
And all those deals, they're those big deals.
Sure.
Interest only, 5-7 years, and then you flip.
No. 25-year amortization, 30-year amortization.
Okay.
So no, my tenant. Because this is how I do it. So my tenants pay my mortgages down, right?
Correct.
So if I have 10 buildings, this is how I do it. Just so you know, 10 buildings. Building number 1 I've owned it the longest. More people have paid down on it. The equity has grown and the building is worth now X.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of milk them like cows. I'll take a mill from here, 2 from here, 1 from here. You buy the next. And you just keep that going.
And when you sell, what do you do?
I hardly ever sell.
If you do sell, what do you do so you don't pay capital gains?
I pay the capital gains.
You do pay the capital gains.
I grew up with a CPA in my house. I like paying the 20%. I like buying those Javelin missiles.
So you do pay.
Yeah, because I'm mitigating the risk. All these people
You don't defer
it? I don't defer it. I think that's a crazyville people. Listen to what happens. I sold the building on West 8th and Okeechobee, next to the motel right there. That's got the shops on the bottom and the apartments on the top. I sold that building. I put about $5 million in my pocket. in it, like in about 2 years, I was kind of freaking out because I wasn't finding a deal. So that's also, you got to be disciplined, you know,
To be patient.
you got to be very patient, and it's not just you know. Sometimes we get excited to do a deal.
How do you work on that? You know, because we're all very impatient. We all want things now. What are some things that you know,
keep my cash flow going well in my other buildings, so I don't have a necessity to jump and do anything. And so, you know,
so you don't defer.
no,
You
because
pay
what
Uncle
ends up
Sam.
happening is what if the political climate changes, and it's now no longer 20%? What if it's 30%? Because you're not paying it, you're deferring it to the future.
Claro.
All you're doing is saying, okay, it's like a credit card bill. I'll pay it tomorrow.
Eventually, somebody's gonna end up paying.
And see, those are the decisions that only if you're the only one owning the project, you can do. What if now you have 4 investors and they're all thinking differently, and they're all, no, let's do it like this? And who's left holding that bag in the future? You know, who's managing that LLC? That'll be, you know, a bill due whenever in the future.
But have you ever been like, hey, Ariel, look, you know, we want to partner up. We're gonna buy this portfolio. It has, you know, over 1,000 doors.
No, I wouldn't do it.
No.
Like getting up at the time that I do, not answering to anybody.
How about you in your 30s or 40s?
No, never.
Tampoco.
I'm here because I'm that guy. You know, I'm not saying it's not bad.
No, because everybody sees everybody on social media and what they do and all that, you know. So it's just a little different perspective.
Yeah, I you know,
It's a
look,
different perspective that, hey, look, you know, you could own this and live very well. Because algunas veces la gente, you know, they think that, oh no, I gotta be on this kind of level. I gotta do this. I gotta do that. And to live this lifestyle, but in reality, you really don't.
No, you don't. If whatever your nut is, right? You know, you can cover it with your look. If it's not yours, you can't control it. The whole idea why we are in this business of the passive income and all that, so that we can. We're not there to make. We're not. You know, it's not a hedge fund. We're not doing. You know, Bitcoin. We're not doing any of that. We're in a passive income business. So, you know, shit, I just lost my train of thought. You gotta
Not thinking big, thinking small. With
you
with
gotta
small
work.
is
You gotta work.
being 100% owner of something.
You gotta work with what's stable. It's the stability of your income, not the peaks and the valleys. You know, the reason you're in rental income is it's that stable money. Why would I deal with Section 8? Because it pays me on the first. All these things are part of me, you know, being able to do my business as how I see.
You prefer buying, holding, cash flowing, collecting rent, or flipping?
No, never flipping.
Never
Flipping is a means to an end. It's something that I recommend that you should do, but it's not what you want to be doing 10, 15 years in your career. Because this is what happens. Flipping is just like lending money. How much energy do you put on a flip between the first time you studied that submarket, you found the property, you were lucky enough that the bank or you got a lead on how to buy it? Look at all the things that had to go right for that deal to materialize. Then all of a sudden, all you do is get rid of it. Then you got to go out and develop another one.
Yeah, find another deal.
So you're constantly on that chase.
On the hunt.
Why don't you just become a real estate salesman and make commission? It's kind of like the same vibe. Think about it, literally.
That's true.
There's no stable income if you're buying and flipping. You're just, you know, excited.
That's true.
And so what the takeaway from what I do is whatever I put energy into is eternal till I'm dead. So I buy it, I build this business, I collect the cash flow, I just build another one, buy another one, build another one. Whereas if you're putting energy in houses and in these flips, you did it, it's gone. Now you gotta do that again.
During the 2008, 2007, the whole crash, did you lose any properties or no?
No.
No.
Luckily.
Have you? And if you were ever in a time that you know, you kind of like hit some sort of rock bottom.
Sure.
How do you, if you have been, how do you find yourself and you know, get yourself out of those tough times? What any personal, you know?
No, I mean, I maintain a positive attitude. Um, I control most of what I do. You know, my employees, my business. So the variables are on my shoulders for the most time. I don't mind the weight. You know, that's why I think it's more about, you know, you developing your economy. Um, it's been tough. I've looked at a map and gone, where in the world should I be? You know, this is a long time ago when I was younger. You know, I measure twice and I cut once. I try not to get myself into jams. Right now, the deals that I'm dealing with, you know, I want to make sure that they all cash flow. Be conservative when you analyze deals. You know that. So how do you handle those type of situations? By trying not to get in them. You see, by avoiding them. You know, make as much money as you can while you can, in your rentals. I always try to keep my rents high. I think that
You keep them high so that way you get good quality people in.
yeah, you know that in the beginning I thought it was kind of backwards. I would kind of you think you keep the rent low
To make sure that people pay you on time and all that stuff.
that doesn't work like
so,
that.
So you don't see that's my mentality.
No.
Let me keep it at least $50 cheaper, $100 cheaper than the
I do
competition.
the opposite.
To try
I do
to
the opposite.
keep the people.
I go 50 to 100 more. And I do it because I'm aggressive. I do it because there's a lot of expenses that you have in an apartment building that sometimes you don't put them on a spreadsheet because, you know, your vacancies, your evictions, some of
The
these
repairs.
Yeah, the repairs. Some of the neighborhoods that I deal with, you know, you have, you know, it's tough. The Section 8 crowd is, you know, it's complicated, you know.
And your whole team deals with all that?
Yeah.
How did you build that team, man? How is it that
I inspire confidence in my people, and whatever they do, I know how to do as well.
were you always a leader?
Yes. And it's funny because now that I'm 53, be 54 in January, it's really when you really internalize it. Because for a while you're just doing it. It takes a while. But my people that I have, you know, I give you an example. I hired a mechanic for that mechanic shop in PSN. My friend Johnny Padilla, great mechanic. Johnny had just become a master mechanic at Miami Lakes Tech. And he was the first mechanic I hired. So he was fresh out of school. Johnny had never changed an engine or stuff like that. And I was like, what's the worst that could happen?
Claro. Yeah, because you're thinking more business. You're not really thinking, you
yeah.
know, the nitty gritty of mechanics.
Look, I don't micromanage my people. I get good people. They know what they're doing. They're responsible. My staff has been with me for a long time.
Do you have a system and process already in place so any new hire that comes in or, you know, people that you have hired, hey, this is the way we flow things. This is the way we do things.
Of course, we use QuickBooks where, you know, it's a simple business. What I also like to say is that the business that I run, I could have been doing this back in Rome 2,000 years ago. You know, people need to live somewhere. You need to pay me or you get out. Stuff like that. I'm not going to suffer the industrial age or the .com age. You know, people have to live somewhere. So I feel I'm chill. You know what I'm saying? You know, so I guess the moral of the story is if you build that passive income, the deals, you don't have to chase them. How do you get the discipline? The discipline comes from the serenity of having passive income. But I have goals all the time, you know, and I keep on raising them.
So you don't think that at the age that you have now, there's no stopping?
No. Now it's actually when it's really, really good for me. I'm at the peak of my career. If you know why, because the connections are there.
But the older you get, don't you feel like that? Okay, I've done enough. Let me just, or maybe because you're already living the life. You already traveled. You already have all that stuff.
I'm gonna share with you. Look, it's where I am today. I probably within the next 5 years, I'll have grandchildren. You know, I haven't
Oh,
yet.
man.
I have 3 kids, so maybe one. So what am I thinking about today? Or how do I keep my business growing? Well, I want to be able to afford my grandkids and, you know, and if I'm good at doing this, who knows who in my family line might or might not. So make as much as you can, and so we can all have a awesome life.
What does your dad? Because I always see you post. You always go
Yeah.
out to dinner with your dad. You always
Sure,
take
sure,
to
sure.
Hillstone here and there.
Yeah.
What does your dad, see you, and he sees everything you've accomplished.
Yes.
You know, what are some of the words that he's told you and especially what's that feeling that you get,
It's,
when
it's
knowing the fact that you came here at a young age with
Sure.
nothing and
Yeah.
you're able to build this big empire. What?
It's wonderful. So my father's my accountant, so it's not like I have to call him and tell him, oh, I'm doing good. He knows he's the one telling me what the numbers are. He has his accounting practice. He doesn't work with me, but he's my accountant. It's my father thinks I'm his father. That he knows that what I do is inherited. You know, it's a lot of people want to ask, oh, how did you find out? This is just, my father, on the other hand, is an accountant. He's a CPA. He's conservative. And a lot of the things that
You're a risk taker.
I am, and
Calculated risk taker.
Exactly. I started taking these risks, and I still remember him, calling some of my deals, oh, that's a white elephant. So it took me a while to prove myself. You get what I'm saying? It takes a minute. But when you get there and it's solid and you've done it, it's very rewarding. So I'm ecstatic that my father and my mother have been able to witness, a bit of my success. Yeah, it's wonderful.
No, of course, man. I think, and in a way, it's like paying them back for all the sacrifice they've done for you.
For sure. And I think you got to take advantage of all the opportunities that get presented to you. You got to have your wits about you, and all the times, how the buildings. What would I like to do? I think in the future, I like to maybe go national. I think deals are harder to find here.
Do you have any deals outside of the state?
Not yet, but my 2 sons are out there. You never know, it would have to be big enough. Maybe Atlanta, it would have to be at least 100 units to justify setting up a
shop up there.
Yeah.
In another place.
Yeah, but I think that's gonna happen.
I want to touch base on going off of the whole real estate stuff. You're somewhat of a poet.
I am.
Is that something that you've always liked?
Yes. So my father writes.
Okay.
My godfather is published. My grandmother wrote. So this is an inherited gift.
I wanted to end the interview like this.
Sure.
Because have you ever thought about either publishing your own autobiography or some kind of book or anything? Has that ever crossed your mind?
Completely. I have a draft there, and we all have egos, but more than anything, and that's why I'm so grateful that you invited me, because I want to inspire other young men and women like me. And it's, it can be done here in this city. It can be done legally without any, and you can have a wonderful life. There's always deals here if you know where to look,
I think you also have to surround yourself with the right people too.
Sure.
And always try to seek that opportunity. It's I think that's key. Yeah, I wanted to ask you that because I think the fact that you coming here, immigrant, being able to build this, I find it, like crazy.
It should be inspiring.
Because you see all these people.
And it's crazy because sometimes people that don't know me, they might think I'm just bragging. I'm not. I'm really just saying, hey, if I could do it, you could all do it.
Yeah, I think to me it seems so more like real, because obviously I have friends that have built, but nothing to to where you're at,
Right.
because we follow all, the Grant Cardones, we follow all these people on Instagram and all that stuff. But when you know that you have somebody
Yeah.
that really lived it, because anybody could tell you a story.
But you're doing such a public service. I don't think you actually understand what you're doing, because look, and I don't know Grant Cardone, and I don't know any of those people. I don't follow anybody in that world, and I have an opinion about doing that. I think that could be a little tricky, because you want to know that things are attainable and real. You want to know that you can practically buy a building within the next 3 or 4 years if you move your chips all. Some of these guys are out there. Obviously their shtick isn't even real estate anymore. It's selling themselves and injecting
And using other people's money.
I don't do that.
To get the deals.
The only people's money that I use, it's federally regulated.
Yeah.
So I don't have to kiss ass to anybody. I don't sell my ideas to people. I don't know, come, it's gonna be great. No. Look, I grew up without running water and electricity. I grew up in the country. We rode horses to town.
What part of Cuba was it?
In Madruga, which is about 60 kilometers from El Capitolio. So within an hour's drive, near Varadero.
Okay.
So that whole nowadays, the what's that big guy that does this, the all these talks? One of these influencers, he's really a big guy. Huh? No. This is older than him. Guy does that all over the world. He's huge. He's physically big.
He's talking about Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins.
Okay.
Oh.
And you sound like, doesn't he sound a little bit like Tony Robbins?
He does.
Yeah,
he does.
All I can say is that, look, you gotta be very careful with all these stories and all these spins that all these people are putting out there, because a lot of times you get hyped up and you get sold a book or a what are they?
Course.
A course.
I was gonna talk to you about that, because I if you know already so much on how to find deals, how to do that, maybe that's something that you could tap into.
I've been in business for 35 years. It doesn't mean much who's in the White House for what we do here locally. It might sound ignorant to people, but I'd rather go to the commissioner meetings. I'd rather know who's the mayor. I'd rather know all those things than be worried about.
So you think that's very important for
it's
somebody?
extremely important.
How about in buying real estate? Is that
It's extremely important. If you invite me and you're a politician, I show up with a check. Why? Because it might not be today. It might be 5 years from now where I might need you. So you want to have all those insurance policies bought. Not to say that you're doing anything illegal, but it's nice to get concierge service when you have an issue.
Of course.
And I obviously, as a landlord, I have a lot of local issues. Garbage, this, whatever. So you need to be connected to politicians in the city. You should know who the court enforcement officers are. You should know who the chief of police is in the city you have real estate. All those things are politically more relevant than,
Who you're voting in for.
Yeah, exactly. That's for that to get down here to affect what we're talking about, that's way above our pay grade. Yeah, so I support local politicians.
No, I think that's something that needs to be talked about, because a lot of people don't really talk about the local stuff.
No,
they're always picturing like the big things.
Yeah, because they're watching TV, they don't see that they're being marketed to. It's look, you really, I think out of all of this, you have to develop your own identity, and you have to develop your own, vehicle by how you observe the world, not by others feeding you how they observe the world. It's a singular journey. So, yeah, I think that's an issue. So, local, issues that you have are going to be local with real estate.
So when do we expect this book, man? Huh? When do we expect this book?
I got a couple
At least
things.
at least an autobiography.
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
I would like something to really.
No, there's something that I already wrote, and it was pertaining to the glass business when I started that. So there's clearly a chronology coming up. But we'll see. I love sitting and writing, and I've been a little bit preoccupied lately, but all's good. And
For any books that you recommend besides obviously Rich Dad Poor Dad, any books you recommend for anybody that wants to get into real estate?
I would read Warren Buffett. I would read, so my father reads a lot. I read a lot. A lot of the autobiographies from Rockefeller. I remember him buying the house for his mother. See, what I ended up doing is in the 11th grade, I dropped out. I thought I was so smart. You know what I did? I dropped out and I said, I'm not going to go to 12th grade. That's a waste of time. I'll just get a GED and then I'll go to Miami-Dade. So I got the GED. When I got to Miami-Dade, I couldn't stand there. I wanted life to start right away.
Were you already making money?
Yeah, at 19, I was already
doing
the auto glass business. Before I started the glass business, I was making $450 a week. When I had the glass business, 2 pieces of glass I would put on were already making me more than that. Yeah. So I started to realize that, if I can leverage other people's physical labor, then maybe that can. So I did that, and
There's nothing wrong with going to school.
There isn't.
There's some people that, they go to school. And
the difference of what I did and how I would recommend it, because I've also had now my friends' kids be sent to me because they want to drop out of school.
Wow.
Yeah, so I have to be there going like, look, don't drop out. Like, if you think I got somewhere, imagine had I stayed in school.
Yeah.
So I'm clearly by the way, my sister is the dean of the School of Education at Miami-Dade College.
Look at that.
So she runs the school too. So I am in a family of learned people, and I'm the one that least educated himself.
Probably the most successful.
But what I did as soon as I did that, I started consuming the books that I wanted to read, the things that interested me.
So that's what you recommend?
Yeah, exactly. Eat all these biographies. Nothing new. I wouldn't read anything from Tony Robbins or any of these. If it's a motivational speaker, you'd be better off setting it on fire. Nobody needs to be motivated. We're already poor as we begin this journey. So is that not motivation enough? Think about it. Really, you need to go pay someone $50 to remind you? Bizarre.
That's facts.
Bro,
That's
okay, you guys are thinking it's all going to get,
facts.
what,
So
download it to your hard drive?
No, of course not.
Come on.
No, you leave out of there high, but then
yeah.
you have to,
it's like going to a strip club.
Exactly.
You leave good, but you're going home alone.
But you end up you have to take action.
Yeah.
With no action.
By the way, that's our family motto. We take action. Yeah, action. So I read a lot of, I read a lot of Benjamin Franklin, a lot of presidential biographies.
Does it matter?
It doesn't really matter who you're reading. The best thing about reading biographies is it helps you identify with the humanity of that person. Because all you know about Bill Gates is that, I mean, Steve Jobs, I read his book too, it humanizes the person. And when it humanizes the person, it says, you can do it too. He's just as human as you. Yeah. So there's more of an impact in an autobiography than in a motivational book.
Makes sense, man. It is.
Yeah.
Well, Ariel, I wanna thank you again, man.
My pleasure.
I hope next time you come, if we have you back on, I would love to have you back on and now get into other topics.
For sure.
I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you again, Ariel, for the time, man.
My pleasure.
To me, it was definitely inspirational.
Thank you.
Your whole thing and
Where's your $50?
Right? But I just want to say thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you.